All right, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Adams Brothers podcast. It's a beautiful Monday afternoon here in beautiful sunny South Florida. We are joined here this afternoon with attorney David Fry. He is a candidate for Broward County Circuit Court Judge, Group number 52, and his name will be appearing on the primary election ballot on August the 18th. And he's here joining us on our podcast today to tell the viewers out there and the voters of Broward County why they should elect him as the next circuit court judge in Group 52 here in Broward County. So, Attorney David Fry, welcome
in the
17th Judicial Court.
Yes. That's right, 17th Judicial Circuit.
Circuit Court. Okay,
Yep.
So Mr. Fry, welcome to the Adams Brothers podcast. We're happy to have you here, sir.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. So we're here. So we'd like to first start out, after we welcome you here, we'd like to first start out by having you introduce yourself and tell the audience and our viewers out there in Facebook and YouTube land why. Well, just tell them about you. Tell them about you and who you are and what you do professional.
And how you got to where you are now.
I'm getting old, so there's a lot to say, but I am, well, thank you for that. Thank you for the opportunity to meet everyone out there in podcast land. I am very happy to be here. I'm very happy to be running for judge in Broward County. The circuit court is the state court, and we are lucky to have the 17th Judicial Circuit be the same size as Broward County. So I only have to campaign close to home here in Broward. But about me, I am currently an assistant public defender. I've done that job since COVID is when I returned to the office to work for my boss, Gordon Weeks. I handle the most serious cases in his office, people who are accused of the most serious crimes, but I very often am involved with those with serious mental illness, those with addiction. My clients, as an assistant public defender, they can't afford their own attorney. So the courts use the word indigent. They cannot afford to make their own payments. I deal with their families. I work with their families. I work with sometimes caretakers. I see in the course of putting my cases together, their whole lives. Often when you're putting a mitigation package together, you're getting school records, you're getting records of care that my clients would have received early in their life and continuing into adulthood. And it tells a story that it shows that not everyone starts off on the same footing. It shows that we may have rules that we call laws and we want them to apply to everyone, and that's fine. But people have different stories, different abilities. And when you're talking about addiction and mental health, it gives a clear explanation as to how someone ended up in these situations. No one just appears there. Oftentimes in my case, on the worst day of their life, it has built up, from a lifetime of sometimes dealing with trauma themselves, sometimes being victims themselves. So when you ask these questions, why can't you just get a job? Why can't you go to your doctor's appointment? How come you're not taking your medicine? How come you can't take care of your kids? This and that. Well, the answer, that's a stupid question, because not everyone is like you. Not everyone has the same experience as you. Just as I was joking with you guys earlier, sometimes I'm 10 minutes late because of my kids are at home, because, I can't help it if one of my kids has to go to the bathroom and I'm late getting out the door for one thing or the other. That is my clients sometime. And where the law and sometimes the prosecution wants to find malice and intent in the things that they do, I see symptoms. I see serious mental illness at times. I see that addiction. I see that victim, that human inside them. And that's what I've been doing since I've returned to the public defender's office. Now, I say returned, I've done a bunch of other things in law. I worked at a civil law firm where I was a civil trial attorney for a couple years. Prior to that, I worked at the same public defender's office. I did appeals and I did lower level crimes as well. Believe it or not, I'd also been a public defender in Seminole County, which is up north in Orlando. And I began my career in law as a prosecutor. And that brought some interesting insight as well, because I actually prosecuted traffic crimes often. And I noticed one of the more pivotal moments in my time there was how important a driver's license is to someone. You know, we're in law school, and I'm fresh out of law school, and we're talking about searches and seizures and probable cause for a stop and reasonable suspicion. Well, guess what? If your driver's license is suspended, you are probable cause on wheels to stop and have that interaction with law enforcement. But guess what? You need that car to drop your kids off at school, to go buy food, and to bring yourself to work so you can do those other two things. So, you know, I had realized from that time kind of how we criminalize behavior, which I'm not here to comment on the wisdom of the legislature, and I don't think anyone will disagree that we need driver's license laws, and especially with the amount of accidents and things like that. But you see how people are stuck in it. You see how sticky the criminal justice system is. You see how hard it is to get out. I came across people who had thousands of dollars that needed to restore their license, for example. It was that, and kind of this interesting kind of morbid curiosity of wanting to fight surrounded, as I call it, that pushed me into being a public defender. And I ended up in Seminole County because it's driving distance from Orlando. The Orlando Public Defender's Office didn't want to poach from the other side of the aisle there. So that's how I ended up there. It was that, and when I noticed that, you know, your client, I'm watching the defense attorneys when I was a prosecutor, and they don't always have the best relationship. And you know, the judge is always, you know, getting on them, the prosecution's getting on them as well. And I said, you know, I kind of like that. You get a little bit more, I guess, I don't want to say dirty, but a little more calluses on the hands. You know, it's a little more, blue collar, I guess, on the defense side. So, you know, I had gone to law school after being a teacher. I was a teacher for a couple of years I ended up working at Belen Jesuit School in Miami. So before I even went to law school, I got a master's degree in education. I was a teacher for about 5 years. I was a sub here in Broward County, but the school in Miami hired me. And my undergrad's from FIU. I did, while I was there, I worked for the mayor of Miami doing environmental policy. And I graduated here from Western High in Davie. I've been living in Broward County in South Florida for most of my life. When I was a real little kid, we moved down here from up north. That's why I have an accent when I say some words. Still carries to this day. I still say water. But anyway, I had my son. He was born when I was my first year of law school, right? So everyone in their first year of law school is talking about, you know, who's getting the better grades, who's going to go work for this law firm or that place and make this money and that, and you know, all their little words, secure the bag. And I just want health insurance. You know, I'm taking finals, waiting on a new baby to come. Knowing, by the way, I'm not going to really be able to get a job. And I had talked with my wife, you know, am I going to go back and be a teacher again, or am I doing this lawyer thing? And no, we're here now. You know, you don't change course. But I got to tell you, that was foundational, because from that point on, I was always 10 minutes late or 15 minutes late because I had a diaper to change, or I had, you know, it was hard getting out of the house. And by the way, I was doing it all without much sleep because baby cries at night. Um, I had a time also in these experiences where when you go work, you get that insurance when you go work for the state of Florida, whether it's a prosecutor, a public defender. We're in the same boat. We're at the mercy of the state budget. I will tell you the insurance is good, but the pay has always not been. And there have certainly been times in my life where it was difficult, and I have experienced that. Like, hey, should I really go be buying myself lunch because it's not the end of the month? What is it? There's too much month, not enough paycheck, or something like that. But I have been there as well, and those experiences are not readily observable to someone who presents to you in a suit and says, "Hi, I'm an attorney." So I certainly know that books should not be judged by their cover, and I certainly have tried to take an open mind throughout the course of my career, which I will say is in public service, and dealing with the community. But you don't know who you're talking to. You don't know what kind of day they're having. You don't know what kind of life they had. They just may have woke up on the wrong side of the bed, or it may have been a lifetime dealing with something that you can't even talk about at the dinner table. So that's how that's how I am. But yeah, I am getting pretty old, so I do have a lot to say in answering your question, gentlemen.
Well, you kind of answered some of one of my questions, but one of my other questions would be you have a impressive background,
resume, yeah,
and so just listening to you, I was like, wow, you've been on both sides, so I'm impressed. So, which professional accomplishment has best prepared you for the bench?
I had man, that is a so there are a lot. And when you're a public defender, your accomplishments, your wins, everything becomes relative. I met a client, he at the age of 6 years old, he was brought into residential mental health care. At the age of 6, he lived out of state, and he was someone that was a victim of sexual abuse himself. His father was murdered at the age of 1 month, so he never knew his father. Mom's working hard her whole life to try to provide for him and his sister. And they end up in Florida, and he goes to school, but he needed, based on either how he was born or the trauma that he experienced from how he was raised, he needed help. He needed mental health care. He needed medication, counseling. And these were things that were not available to him, but for the times that he was being accused of a crime and he was brought into the criminal court. Then we have mental health court. Then we have services. Then we have different agencies that he can be linked with. And he did well. And he got his medication until, he would complete them successfully. And then, now he's 15, 16, in high school, and he's doing what he can. The football team was his only kind of, I guess, way of socializing in life, but he was self-medicating. This was someone that heard voices. And I don't know what that's like. I don't know what it is like inside the mind of someone with a serious mental illness, but something he told me later on made me kind of realize it. So this gentleman, he goes on and he'll get accused of a crime. He had an issue with some police officers, and he got a battery on a law enforcement down there in Miami. And he eventually completed his program like he always is, because he's not a bad person. He's kind of a big teddy bear, but he needs help. Mom can't take care of him by this point, and he's in his 30s. And he got released from his program. And well, where does he go? What options does our society, our state, what do we have for him? Can he work? Not meaningfully, not without help. So he ends up basically, the nice word is a group home, but if you imagine something like 40 people living in a 1-story home in Hollywood, that, we may have all driven past the same, and you can't put 40 people in there. And, it's these places, they just kind of collect a check, and, he needed medication. It was a stressful environment. He needed medication. It was not the sort of structure that this person needed. And he starts hearing voices, and he did something violent. He did in a violent way. He killed someone, and I see him. I'm there. I get called basically the day he gets arrested to go see him, and he's sweaty, a mess. Okay, I'm David Fry. I'm your attorney. It's not it's not landing. I come back a couple days later. Now he's inside. Now he's had food. He's hydrated. These are things we take for granted. I think I sipped this water cup here 4 times already. We take these things for for granted. Gentlemen, you brought up how hot it was outside. Go stand outside. If that you had to be out there all day, what kind of mood are you going to be in? Now you add all that on top of someone that already has a significant mental illness, and I'm saying hearing voices, and is self-medicating. That is not going to be a person that is acting with any kind of malice. That's going to be a human being in need. And it's very unfortunate that he was even put in this environment.
Mm-hmm.
Where this other person was killed. But so I talked to him a couple days later, and he's doing better. And I see him crying, and it's very rare to see someone crying. When you're, when it's a public defender and it's a whodunit, it wasn't me. You got to figure it out. We're going to fight this. We're going to go to trial, this and that. He was crying, and he just looked at me and he said, "What happened to the man?" And I said, "Well, he died." And he just breaks down on the table in front of me, and he said, "My God, I thought it was a dream. I thought the whole thing, everything I was doing was a dream." And that really stuck with me. So how does that prepare someone to be on the bench? That dovetails with, you don't know who is appearing before you. You don't know in what condition they're in. Do not prejudge an intent, a mindset. I've seen in court, sometimes a language barrier is misconstrued as lack of intelligence. No, they just don't know the words to speak in the same language as you. Same thing. I think that all of this specific experience, but everything, you take people as they come, and you remember the power of the judge is power over people. You are bringing with your signature, and hey, sometimes it's as stupid as a box that you check and a number that you write, but that's someone's life when you're checking that box and you're writing that number, whether it's incarceration, probation, etc., dismiss the case, hold them no bond, violation of probation, whatever it is, that's affecting someone's life in a criminal case. Okay, but we have it in family as well. We have, how are you dividing the assets between 2 partners splitting up? Who gets to see the kids? How? Who gets to be the parent of the kids? Independency. Okay, and if it's an estate, how is the family's assets divided up? These are all questions that affect people's lives. And any judge needs to remember, it is people, it's humans that are coming before you, right? It is, they have that same beating heart that you do, but the law tells you, hey, I have to be cold and calculated. I have to just follow the law. But that doesn't mean you don't recognize the solemnity of your power, the significance of what you're doing. And if we're saying that due process is notice and the opportunity to be heard, you better hear them for who they are and not just assume something that's not there.
Yeah, we have a lot of people asking who are you. So one of our we're telling them the attorney David Fry, and one of our viewers, April Bolowitz, says a young male I know in need of a psychiatric meds but can't afford them, can't get consistent meds. You could be describing him. That's from April when you were talking about the
yeah, it's common. It is all too common when we talk about healthcare in this country. I can't talk about that as a judicial candidate.
Right. Yeah, we understand.
But I will tell you what was one of the first things I said. Hey, my job, what my job choice was not for money, but for how do I get health insurance for my son?
Yeah.
And I have experienced that 100%. And I am lucky that my son, God willing, does not need any of that care, or hadn't needed any of that care. But yes, it is. You start on the spectrum from the story I'm describing, and I think everyone in this country feels it in some way.
Yeah. Those real life experiences too.
Oh, absolutely.
That's you're describing. Yes.
Thank you.
I got a question too, Mr. Fry. How do you ensure that you will remain impartial and unbiased when making decisions in the courtroom?
Yeah, I think one of the main drivers of bias is a high volume caseload in our court systems. What do I mean by that? We are all finite government resources, right? Even judges. And if the people want you to have 1,000 cases for X amount of your time, 9 to 5, well, hey, guess what? If you can improve efficiency and do 2,000 cases in that same amount of time, et cetera, well, you're working more efficiently. So what do I mean by that? A high volume caseload is experienced in every circuit division in the state, for sure. We have a tendency as advocates, as the court, and I have seen it as probation officers and pretrial officers as well, to move things through as quick as possible. So what does that mean when you want to work? It may look like you're working more efficiently because you're moving cases along, but you're just reading the summary on the paper in front of you. You're just reading a list of charges. You're looking down at what's given to you. You're not looking straight ahead at the people standing before you. And by the way, I work in criminal court. I deal with defendants. That could go for victims. That could go for next of kin. That could go for mom that has a concern. That could go in it for a domestic violence injunction. Okay. Someone who is absolutely terrified of someone else. But, looking down at the paper and not out at the courtroom, I think that's where your bias comes in, because you're given that information, that summary. And if that is just going to taint how you're going to rule on this one way or the other, and you're not going to give the time and have the ability to work really for that, to understand who is in front of you. That is one thing that I will say that I will be mindful of in terms of bias elimination. Slow it down if it needs to, not, don't throw it out the door. Don't move it along.
Yeah, because we've seen a lot of that over the last few years. I know a lot of stuff we can't particularly talk about, but I just think, me as a ordinary citizen, as I just want to see fairness and justice in the system. If I come before the court, I just want to see that they're at least making an effort to be fair.
Yeah,
I think that's all everyone is asking for when they come in the courtroom in any county, any state, or whatever. They're just looking to be.
Yeah. I want to add something. I don't mean to cut you off, but I'll add something.
No, go ahead.
If you are just an average person from the community, whatever, you walk into a courtroom, you are going to have no idea what's going on. You're going to say, where do I sit? What do I do? And you are totally at the mercy of whatever is happening. I have been there when people, they want to be heard. They don't know where to sit. They don't know where to stand. They don't know when to call up front. Oh, and by the way, you might be sitting around for 3 hours waiting on the case to get called. Just that, just ordering the whole process too. And then what happens when they get called? Real quick, the whole hearing is 30 seconds long. Even if it's 2 minutes, you may have no idea what's happening. The judge said a lot of words you don't understand, and there's some papers being shuffled, and then the bailiff or the court deputy is saying, right this way, here you go. And they're handing you a carbon copy of something that does not look like anything you understand. That is the largest source of anxiety, I think, is just not knowing what's going to happen. But then why is that person even stepping into a courtroom? People don't go into courtrooms for any happy reason but for adoption, I would say. Right. I mean, you're being sued. You're being divorcing someone. You have the injunction, whatever, criminal cases, even if it's a small thing. You don't want to be there. Nobody wants it. It's not for a good reason.
It's intimidating.
Yeah. Hey, even if you're having a fight with your neighbor over the fence being 6 inches to the left or right or whatever, you don't want to have to take that time off work and get in there. And then you show up, you have no idea what's going on. It is intimidating. There is anxiety, and there's so much emotion. And you mix that, in my experience, with people that, maybe are dealing with, my clients with these mental health issues, with substance issues, with their families, and just all of that. And hey, we gotta, that's a lot to swallow in that short amount of time. It is something that, honestly, it's something that I love doing. So there's just nothing like that.
And my next question for you, Attorney Fry, if elected, how would you ensure that every person who enters your courtroom feels heard and respected? A lot of people don't feel like they're heard when they get they get to the courtroom. Again, they feel intimidated. They don't know when to speak and when not to speak, and then when they leave court, they says, "I don't think the judge got a chance to really hear me." So. How would you feel, to ensure that every person who enters your courtroom feels heard and respected if elected?
Yes, sir. You do your homework ahead of time. You set your docket. You manage your docket so that it's not going to be too many people, or it's rather going to be a manageable amount of people at one time. If it's something that just the attorneys need to be there for, you allow that. You don't bring people in that don't need to be there if you're just going to be resetting something, for example. You manage the courtroom. You don't want it to be a deli counter, right, where it's just everyone get in line, you take your ticket, and next, and you're resetting dates. You want substantive issues to be heard. It goes to courtroom management. You don't, as the judge, you are something like the mayor of your courtroom, right? You adopt your procedures, your sign-in sheets. You work with your staff. In a criminal division, I work as a public defender. When I was in division, what that means is that when I was in division, I would be there every day. That court was in session as the public defender. You work with the judge. Hey, these people are coming in. Go see them. Go see what they need. All right. Everyone in that courtroom should have a vested interest in the community and the people coming in to find out who they are, what they need. So much of this is done in game time decisions, right? Coming into court, you don't know what's in front of you, how long it's going to take. Time management is huge, and doing your homework. So, to add on everything I want to say, I mean, I'm not going to sit there and repeat myself, but judges should be doing their homework.
Preparation. So preparation is important.
Yeah. Read the next day's docket. Know what's coming up.
Yeah. And one of our viewers, Shanita Vickers, says sometimes when the support group shows up, they also are treated like the defendant. Speaking of courtroom justice.
Yeah. I have seen judges balance the need for. Oh, am I frozen?
No,
we froze.
For a second, you was.
For a second, frozen. So yeah. I've seen the judges balance the need to keep things orderly, we'll say, and when you have a support group of many people showing up. are these people that need to be separate from, the other side, for example. And that may be something that a judge needs to learn more information about very quickly. I have seen support groups in court. I have seen judges allow them there. But yeah, it's not a ball game. It's not a cheering section. It doesn't mean we're not human, right? It doesn't mean we're not going to have gasps and things like that. But sometimes when a judge is managing that, for sure, it's one person speaks at a time. If it's the time to call witnesses, I've seen judges ask that cell phones not be present, or children for that matter. And I think that could be summarized as what's reasonable for the situation. Everyone you have a right to be in there. It is a public courtroom. It is not the judge's house. It is not their ownership, for sure. But they have a responsibility to manage everyone that's in there, really, for the safety and
that leads me to a question.
Efficiency of what is happening, right?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. And that leads me to a question, being when you said some judges will ask cell phones, no cell phones, or whatever.
Yeah.
What about cameras in the courtroom?
I mean, I've seen like media or people recording.
Yeah, pretty much media and people recording in the courtroom. I'm trying to stay on that fine line. I don't want you, look, how do you feel as a defense attorney right now? How did you feel about cameras in the courtroom and people being able to record without disrupting the proceedings?
First Amendment, the First Amendment.
Yeah, well, also for one thing, everything in a criminal courtroom is recorded anyway. The technology's only gotten better for that. They actually have a little device called the Owl, and it looks like kind of a football sort of thing, and it's got a bunch of cameras on it, and it will zoom into anyone who's talking, and you are recorded. Everything you say is recorded, period, end of story. Now, the sheriff's office does get concerned for security reasons of people from the general public recording, and attorneys as well. So I cannot, as an attorney, even in the courtroom, take a picture of something. Or known attorneys, by the way, that have gotten in trouble for doing that. I think that there's reason behind those rules, from the sheriff. I will say they would get enforced equally, right? If attorneys can't take pictures, no one else should be able to. And that's a rule I personally just kind of do without thinking. But I don't mind being recorded by anyone. I don't mind being recorded by the media being in there. And I am recorded every day anyway. So, I mean, that's that.
And go ahead. I was going to read a comment, but go ahead.
Yeah. And how do you stay current on changes in the law and regulations? I always wonder, about judges and attorneys. Do they have like continuing education classes for that? How do you stay current on changes?
That's true. And, we just got a totally new jury instruction on reasonable doubt. What's reasonable. It's not an abiding conviction of guilt anymore. It's, as it's been newly defined by the Supreme Court. Look, there's a number of places. Florida Law Weekly, they'll publish cases, each week. There's the Bar News. Bar News publicizes these things, the bar groups. But yeah, CLEs, continuing legal education credits. Okay. You go, I am qualified to second chair a death penalty case, and that means every 2 years I need to go to a week-long seminar on the status of death penalty litigation. Anytime, we had a big Supreme Court case come down about geofencing. It has to do with cell phones and how the cops can figure out who's going in and out of one area, right? And how is that addressed by the Fourth Amendment, and how is that addressed by the law? As technology changes, you get more of these things. But it's I think it's twofold. Number one, yeah, you got to be a lifelong learner for sure. Okay. Keep up with what's going on in the legal news of it. But hey, you may get an issue that's new. You may get someone that's raising an issue before the court, and go do your own research. Stay up on that. You know, we have resources. There's a law library in the courthouse downtown, and there's significant electronic sources. Westlaw is what I use. There's another one, LexisNexis. You know, and hey, talk to someone too. Talk to a law professor, maybe.
Right.
Plenty of resources.
And I want to read a couple of these comments. Shanita Vickers said, the police officers control the courtroom and they normally are not nice. So how would you, if you notice that a police officer aren't being nice to people in the audience, is that a fair question to say? How would you handle that?
That's a fair question. I think, look, if your name is the judge, you know, at the top of it, and you know, saying the top of the courtroom, right? The judge just sits a little elevated, so it's up the stairs a bit. But if you're up there, you know, you're responsible for that. Okay, stop the court. Go in the back. I've seen judges bring people in the back. You know, attorneys, court deputies, things like that. Yeah, you know, hey, we need to address this situation and calm down. Sure, you know, it depends on what it is. I saw another. I'm not going to comment on witnesses, you know, police officers as witnesses or this or that, but yeah, rest assured, it's the people's court. The people deserve dignity. Everyone deserves dignity and to be addressed with dignity, even if there are security concerns, right? There's security concerns in Disney World. They're nice about it there, right? Everywhere you go, the airport, it costs nothing to be polite. That's my stance on that.
Right. And another question was right here that said, depends on the judge to allow recording. Yep, that's what all judges say. We are already recording, so no recording allowed. So here's the catch. Everyone is supposed to make money, right? So they charge you a fee to get a copy of the recording through their transcripts department. So that was from Patricia Saunders.
Yeah. I hear you.
Yeah. Right. It's all about that money.
I hear you. Yeah.
And I believe she's right on that too, because at the end of the day, they'll tell you that.
I know she's right. Yeah. So, I mean, look, there is something called indigent for costs that we also at the same time have public record requests in Florida, but that public record request comes with a fee. You know, there is a barrier to entry to many things you may want to do in this society, and that barrier is money. A circuit court judge, aside from declaring someone indigent for costs, my hands may be tied on that issue. But yeah, I hear you. I've experienced that. I've known people that have experienced that. And but one important thing is it is recorded and it exists. So you know, if it's if someone wants to hide something that they're saying or doing, they can't.
And are judges allowed to give interviews with the media if they choose to?
I don't think about a case, sir. I don't, you know, I got to tell you, I have not read something on point that says they are allowed. I really feel like the way the state of the law is, a judge is not going to be able to get an interview at all publicly about a case that they are part of. They cannot do any investigation, you know, on the case. You know, sometimes a judge may retire and write a book or something like that, but you know, judges should not be interviewing anyone about a case pending in front of them.
Yeah, because I asked that because I never saw a judge do a interview about the case. I never saw that in my years of just looking at TV. Now when they retire and I'm looking at ID Discovery, I do then see a retired judge talking about the set case at that time. So I was just wondering, since we had you on here.
I have not seen anything that would suggest that that's allowed. And I think there's good reason why that's not a good idea. You give up a lot of your own First Amendment rights as a judge. I mean, that's the job. You want to have First Amendment rights, go do something else. But, you know, I heard the chief judge once said, live like a hermit. Be careful what you put on social media and your commentary. You give that up. I mean, that's just the nature of the job.
And have you ever been in the courtroom one time and a brawl ensued in the courtroom? I mean, like looking at some of those shows on TV where you see people just just try to attack the judge, the defendant. Have you ever been in a courtroom and saw that happen before?
I have been in a courtroom where individuals, may have been having an episode where they may have been acting out and needed to be removed. But every judge that I have been in front of has been able to recognize those situations before they got bad, and has handled it more quiet than it could have been, more quiet than the way it was going. I will tell you, I often am asked to leave the courtroom in a different way. As the defense attorney, I'm not always the most popular person, and I don't expect next of kin or victims or families to understand that. I'm not giving them the history lesson on the Constitution, and I know that's not for them to know in this point that their loved one was hurt or they themselves were hurt. So again, it's preparation. When individuals may be recognized to be prone to having that happen, the environment in the courtroom changes. And that goes the same thing for the people coming in. It's not a ball game. It's not something to spectate for. But you do have that right to be heard, certainly, but it is done orderly. So again, what's reasonable? It's you apply dignity to the process. That's all I can say.
And how will it be for you to balance family life? If elected, how would it be for you to balance family life with your work on the bench?
I spend a lot of time, I don't want to say absorbed in my work, but I believe very strongly in my work. So what gets sacrificed? I am not the biggest sports fan as I have been in the past, because I give up watching football and hanging out with my friends a lot. But family life, I still keep. I end up having to do jail visits late, and that's the thing. I'm mindful that I may be the only person that my clients are seeing, in jail, or the only one that they're talking to. And that's who I am. I like doing that. My family will see me. My family sees me. I don't think I give up too much with them, but I certainly give up my own hobbies.
Now, you've worked in Seminole County, up in Central Florida, outside of Orlando. You see some of the things that they face up there in Seminole County, but here in Broward County, what do you believe is the biggest challenge facing the Broward County court system today, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think I really think a high volume caseload. I think state of Florida, we have more than 3.5 million new cases filed each year. In a circuit court, they're not all resolving on the day they're filed, none of them are, for that matter. But you figure a case can go on for a year and a half, sometimes even longer. I think the biggest challenge is managing that caseload. I think the biggest challenge is the resources that we have as a circuit. The state funds us, the county funds us. Under the Florida law, it's shared responsibility. But what has been successful in this circuit has been specialty courts, mental health court, vet court, and drug court. Triaging cases. Triage may not be the best word, but sorting them out. Which area is the best? May we have a judge or an issue that can best handle these things. We have a great mental health court in Broward County. Amazing mental health court. And why? They're able to get those services. They're able to link, from one person, to the care provider directly. You have the person's cell phone. You're not calling customer service, sort of thing, in mental health court. I think the biggest challenge is that high volume caseload is just moving things forward, because what happens at that point is the due process that we're all owed gets ignored for time.
Now you mentioned mental health court just now, but what about the people that's out there on the streets that's, they're on drugs, and drugs affects a lot of families here across this country, and when these defendants come to court, they have a problem, and just throwing them in jail and trying locking them up, that's not getting them any help. What about people that's on drugs? Do they have drug court, or how would you I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to ask this question. Drug court, how would you
let me
handle defendants that come into your court that is on drugs?
Yeah. Well, let me say this first.
And
let me say this first. The power of a judge is limited by the nature of what the job is. All right. And I'm giving context to what I'm going to say. Right. I'm not trying to back out of anything or give you an excuse, whatever, but it's limited. Right. And what does limited mean? It means that the people's solution, right? The people's real power to change the law, and to have a what do we call it? The sort of public services to address social problems. So, public medical issues, public health issues, I think is the word I want. Right. So we see that with the legislative branch and the executive. Okay. That's where the people need to use their power. Going to a judge, but a judge can use discretion and to a party, but that's that one person. That's how the law is being applied to that one person, right? If you want drugs to be addressed as a public health emergency, if you want drugs to be treated differently under the law in the criminal context, you as the people, your remedy is with the legislature, is with the Constitution itself. We amend the Constitution, state and federal. Okay. And with the governor's office. Now, let me answer your question, specifically. Every effort, I believe, should be used to resolve cases of only drugs, right? While in accordance with the law, but use these resources that we have in the court system that we have set up, right? We do have a drug court. If the state and the defense are in agreement, if court projects is otherwise, if it's okay, I can't think of any reason why to not use the resources in front of you, right? Now that said, every case is unique. You take every case at a time, right? I can't sit here and tell you I will have a policy of, addressing one thing or another, because possession of certain substances is criminalized. And I can't say, hey, I'm the judge, I don't think that's criminal because this, that, or the other. I can't do that, right? That's a policy concern. But we have these things. No, I'm not going to ignore the resources that we have, I think is the best way of saying that. And as a candidate, I encourage public health, public issues. That's a matter for the public. Get out there. Yeah. All right. Elections. These things all matter. Talk to your legislature. Talk to your governor. Best thing the judge can do is just for the guy, at the top of the paper. And that's not a change in the law. And that's not appropriate to look for a judge to do those things.
Yeah. I only have one more question for you, but I want to put up one of these questions by one of our viewers. She says, how can you as a judge work within the court system to reduce repeat interactions for people with untreated mental illness? That's from one of our viewers, April Lewis Bolowich.
Yeah.
And we know you got to walk that fine line.
No. Well, I would first answer the question the same way of mental health court. We have resources through mental health court. We have pretrial release with mental health conditions, for example. Someone being accused of a crime, again, their case is not going to get resolved on that day. Very few. I mean, there are misdemeanors that get resolved when someone gets arrested, but regardless, someone is accused of a crime, transferred to mental health court, there is the ability to have someone placed on pretrial release, to get into a diversion program, which, by the way, is operated by the state attorney's office, not a judge. So many of these policies, right, are actually not from the judge themselves or the circuit themselves. They're from the state of Florida, the prosecutor's office, or some other entity. But how is a judge, untreated mental health? It's very limited when someone doesn't want mental health care. I mean, we have the Baker Act for someone that's in crisis, but how do you force someone to take medication that that can't? In limited circumstances, when someone is in custody, they will sign an order, basically forcing someone to receive injections of an antipsychotic. But for a trial court judge, it is very limited. How I would answer that is, we do have resources. Again, to the extent this is important to the public, absolutely pay attention. Support these agencies. When I say pay attention, I mean pay attention to the law, pay attention to what the legislature is voting on. I would encourage civic participation. But, outside the confines of what the circuit has available and what the law allows, it is difficult for sure to force someone to be medicated.
Okay. Wayne?
Yeah. Yes. And this is my final question. How has it been so far on the campaign trail? I mean, I don't know if this is your first time running for public office, if you're a novice, or how has it been on the campaign trail? And can you tell us some of the support you have received and some of the endorsements that, if you received any endorsements so far, which we know you have?
Sure. Well, I will tell you this. The two takeaways from the campaign trail are: it is a big county and it is hot. It has been hot this summer.
That's true.
I have been trying to meet people anywhere people gather, be it a church, a retirement community, an event put on by a city, 4th of July, this or that. I mean, I've been all over. This is my first time running. And, I just don't like interrupting people and having to go to these things and just break in and grab someone's attention, say, "Hey, I'm David Fry, I'm running for judge." That was an acquired taste, to get used to doing that. No, I did get the endorsement of the Sun Sentinel. I am honored with that. I was very happy to receive that. I have Nan Rich, who's a former state senator. She's been supporting me. I have Michael Gottlieb. He's been supporting me in my own city of Coconut Creek. Joshua Rydell's been supporting me, and even Commissioner John Brody's been supporting me. He's a city commissioner as well in Coconut Creek. I have down in Pines as well. Mayor Castillo, Mike Hernandez have been supporting me as well. Those are names. I'm not really a name dropper, to be honest. Yeah. I just, I just like getting out there and doing it. I view myself as like playing a character, right? Hey, I'm running for office. You kind of elevate yourself and you go and you meet all these people, and then you come home and it's an exhale. It's man, that one's over. When's the next one? So it's all very new to me, but I'm happy to do it. I am meeting a ton of people. Ton of events that I never would have gone to. I've been down in the south part of the county. I've been to a number of their churches on Sunday. I go to an Episcopal church on Oakland Park. Another thing I do a charity there where we do laundry for needy individuals and families and transits. But that church is very different than some of the churches I've been in. The Baptist Missionary Baptist Church, for example, amazing. You have to be there to hear the music and hear that cadence. And that is new to me. I'll admit that I'll embrace that. That is new to me. These are places that I wouldn't have gone otherwise. I am so happy to have been there. So I mean, that's kind of my whole takeaway. But it's hot everywhere I go. It's hot. Like a lot of dry cleaning, a lot of laundry.
Yeah, this is South Florida. This is definitely South Florida, so it is hot here. So, Attorney David Fry, my final question for you.
All right,
I'm going to give you 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
2 minutes to look into the camera and tell the voters of Broward County why they should choose you over the other candidates in Group 52 for the next judge in the 17th Judicial Circuit Court, Group 52. You have 2 minutes.
And you could tell us too where you can be found on social media and
social media.
Any platforms you can be found on that you would want the viewers to know about, and any dates, early voting or anything else. Try to throw all that in there too if you can.
You mean, rattle the pitch off, do the sales pitch. Well, viewers, thank you so much for listening to me. Look, I'm running on my experience. I'm running for an open seat. I've been a public defender here in Broward County. It's been 6 years since COVID, about a couple years before that. I work with all manner of people in this community. I work with everyone, but they have that common theme of they're unable to afford their own attorney. And they come to me as they are with mental health issues, addiction, poverty, their families. Okay. I humanize them. My job is to work with people and bring that very human element into court. I am very aware of the power of a judge and how it affects people. I live here in Broward County. I live in Coconut Creek. My son's starting high school. He's going to go to Monarch High. My daughter's starting 5th grade. They go to public schools. I graduated from public school as well here. I want everyone not only to remember to vote on August 18th, but tell your friends, tell your family. Why? Because every judge is elected during the primary. Every judge is on the ballot, and it's nonpartisan and countywide on August 18th. So that's when you all need to remember to go out and vote for those judges. And you can do your research on me. You can go to davidfryforjudge.com. That's spelled F-R-Y, like a frying pan. So davidfryforjudge.com. I am on Instagram and Facebook. I'm very happy that you all invited me. And I look forward to being your next 17th Judicial Circuit Court judge. Thank you.
Well, if you win, I certainly hope I don't ever have to come down
That's
in
what
the
I'm
courtroom
saying.
in front of
Before you.
That's very intimidating. I wouldn't want to see you in that setting, but we've been talking to Attorney David Fry. He is a candidate for the Broward County Circuit Court judge in the 17th Judicial Court, Group 52. And he is asking for your vote on in the primary elections on August the 18th. So, Attorney David Fry, thank you so very much for joining us here on the Adams Brothers podcast. And when you win, come back and
just say
and
thank
a little
you.
Short podcast. And say, hey, I just want to come back and thank you all.
Of course,
we'd love to see you back here.
Of course. And if you win, we'll have more to talk about too.
Absolutely.
I plan on winning.
Yeah.
Okay, Attorney David Fry, thank you for
joining
Mr.
us.
Fry. Have
Thank
a
you.
wonderful rest of your evening, sir. We'll be right back with the pop-up podcast. Everybody, stay tuned.
Thank you, gentlemen.